morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of College Football Mornings. It is September 26th. We are almost through the end of September. We had a wild weekend this past Saturday. A lot of really good matchups, a lot of upsets. We finally got to that weekend where a lot of these ranked teams lost games we were not expecting them to lose, including some in the top 25, which is what we're going to do today. We're going to run through the top 25. I'm actually going to give you guys some Friday night lights talk. We're going to go over some of the best weekends from the incoming 23 recruiting class. Quarterbacks, it's a position that everybody kind of really pays close attention to on the high school level. So we're going to go through and talk about some of those guys. Obviously, Mox will be here in a couple minutes to talk about the early lines to bet on. Make sure to pay attention to this YouTube channel and attention to everything that we're doing. Better Sports Radio, 8 to 10 a.m. every Saturday morning. It's a free app. Download it. Come join us. Spend a little of your morning with us. We definitely won some people some money. Definitely lost on the Graham Mertz bet. I apologize to you guys on that. He did not get -2 rushing yards. He actually got 15 against that defense. Surprising. But let's talk about the top 25. Speaking of, obviously, Ohio State, who is firmly ranked in the top 25 as of right now. Georgia beats Kent State 39-22. Wasn't really expecting the game to be that close, if you can say it was close. Interesting game for Georgia. I'm sure they'll be better moving forward. Most top teams have a game like this where you're supposed to blow them out. It's supposed to be a 57-3 or 7, whatever type game. It's a little bit closer than people expected, but I'm sure they're going to be fine moving forward. Michigan beats Maryland for the most part fairly easily, 34-27. It was a close game for a lot of this. J.J. McCarthy, very efficient, but I don't feel like did a lot. It's going to be something we really want to watch moving forward because J.J. McCarthy, I think, needs to take a massive step forward for Michigan to be a top school. Wake Forest, Clemson, two ranked teams. Clemson number 5, Wake Forest 21. Massive game here. Really fun to watch. Clemson ends up coming away with the win in double overtime. I mean, it was a great, great game. Number 14, Penn State beats Central Michigan 33-14. Number 17, Baylor beats Iowa State 31-24. Number 24, Pitt beat Rhode Island 38-33. Number 22, Texas loses in overtime to Texas Tech 37-34. That is a massive loss for Texas, at least in my opinion. In conference loss to Texas Tech. The Alabama loss, I don't think would have hurt them much for anything future. Wouldn't have mattered in the Big 12. Wouldn't have mattered for any playoff positioning. They're likely going to get Quinn Ewers back in a couple weeks, but that loss hurts. The biggest upset of the weekend, Miami, currently number 25, loses to Middle Tennessee State 45-31 at a point where Tyler Van Dyke gets benched and Jay Garcia comes in. That is something we will be paying very close attention to. And I should add, if you guys want to hear a more in-depth analysis on a lot of these games, go check out College Fantasy tonight. Nate Marquise, you can follow him at CFF. Nate joined me this Saturday night, practically Sunday morning, and we went through a ton of these top games, talked about the top storylines as well. It's also on our podcast feed if you want to hear what we talked about Saturday morning on the tailgate and on College Fantasy tonight. Oregon beats Washington State. Oregon was ranked 15, 44-41. Ole Miss beats Tulsa 35-27. Ole Miss ranked 16. Number 8, Kentucky beats Northern Illinois 31-23. Another great game that could have gone a completely different way. Number 10, Arkansas loses to number 23, Texas A&M 23-21. Arkansas has a kick with, I believe it's like less than a minute left on the clock to go through the uprights. It hits the upright, bounces back out. Arkansas loses that game as you loses by 2 points. Jimbo Fisher continues to find ways to keep himself considered a highly ranked coach. I don't understand it, but that was a bad game for Texas A&M. They look like a bad team. I'm very intrigued to see what this team looks like moving forward because they're just not good. Alabama does exactly what you're supposed to do against Vanderbilt, beats them 55-3. Ohio State beats Wisconsin 52-21. They are number 3. Number 12, NC State beats UConn 41-10. Number 6, Oklahoma loses in a big upset late in prime time, 41-34 to Kansas State. Adrian Martinez looking like the guy we all hoped he was going to be at Nebraska. Scott Frost looks like he kind of ruined him. Klein may be bringing him back. Unfortunately, I feel like this is his last year of eligibility, so That part of it kind of sucks because I would have loved to be able to see this Adrian Martinez for multiple years and what this could have meant moving forward for him. Number 7 USC survives a scare in Corvallis against Oregon State. We talked a lot about it that Saturday morning. I thought this was going to be a good game. It turned out to be that 17-14 for USC. They still got a bunch of turnovers and barely won this game. I'm telling you guys, I know USC fans are not going to like this. They are a fraudulent top 10 team. That offense is great, but they can be slowed down. And when they do, they are not necessarily a good team because that defense is not good and they need those turnovers. They still got 4. They're living on a massive turnover differential right now that the Iowa teams have done for years. And Chris Moxley would tell you every week, bet against Iowa, bet against Iowa, bet against Iowa until it hits. And I do think same thing will happen with USC. Number 19, BYU beats Wyoming 38-24. Number 13, Utah beats Arizona State 34-13. And number 20, Washington wins 40-22 over Stanford. We are going to talk a little bit more about the USC and Oregon game and Washington-Stanford game here in a couple minutes, just because we did not get a chance to talk about them on College Fantasy tonight, me and Nate Marquise, just due to the fact that obviously, the games were literally going on as we were talking. So we did not get a chance to go over those 2 games. We will do that here in a minute. I do want to run through really quick some of the top quarterback performances. Again, these are guys that most of them are playing Friday. Some of them are playing Thursday, Saturday nights that we will see coming up over the next year. Like, they'll be going to these big schools. Everybody knows Arch Manning, but there's other guys as well. They're coming to these schools we need to know about. Arch Manning gets his first loss of the season to Many, Louisiana, 25-17, only 8 of 20 passing for 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. Very, very interesting to see what happens with them moving forward. Dante Moore, Oregon commit. I think he's incredible. He's my QB2 in this class. These stats might make you laugh because of the score here. They beat Detroit Henry Ford 56-0. Dante Moore was 4 of 6 for 72 yards and 3 touchdowns, guys. Like, that's fairly efficient. 3 touchdowns. I'm very excited, though, to see him go to Oregon. We've seen what Bo Nix was. Bo Nix experiment over with. Who knows if we're ever going to be able to see Ty Thompson turn into what, I had hoped he would be, Colin Decker hoped he would be. I think Dante Moore's a realistic shot of coming in next year and starting as a true freshman. Jackson Arnold out of Denton Guy are committed to Oklahoma. 7 of 12 for 130 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns. He wins 49-21 over Little Elm, Texas. Dylan Lonergan. Oh, he's committed to Alabama along with Eli Holstein. He wins his game 41-24 over South Forsyth incoming Georgia. 28-36 for 404 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, including a beautiful touchdown pass to Bryce Dobson. If you guys want to see that, check out Friday Night Lights. We drop that show on our YouTube channel every Sunday. I do it along with David. You can follow at Solving Football and Matt at Big Wide Receiver Guy. We try to pull as many high school highlights as we can find and talk about these performances. I do talk about the quarterback performances on there as well. Avery Johnson. So I just mentioned Adrian Martinez, and we are going to talk a little bit more about that game and what he did in that game. Avery Johnson's a better version of him, better rusher, better passer, better everything. Going to Kansas State. Very excited to see what he can do going to Kansas State if Klein stays there and continues calling plays the way he did Saturday night. Last night was Sunday night. 2 nights ago, Saturday night against Oklahoma. But he won 56-7 over Salina, Kansas, 11 of 15 passing for 227 yards, 2 touchdowns, plus 11 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Austin Novosad, one of the guys that I think is going to be a tremendous quarterback moving forward at a Dripping Springs, Texas, beat Bowie in Austin 55-7. He is committed to Baylor. 21-24 passing, 215 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Pierce Clarkson, St. John Bosco quarterback, Louisville commit. He's a top 8 quarterback for me. I believe he's top 12 in all the consensus rankings. Number 1 high school in the nation is St. John Bosco. 65-0 over Modesto, California, Central Catholic. 6-9 for 149 yards and 3 touchdowns. Before we jump in and talk more about that USC and Oregon State game, Stanford, Washington, let's get Moxley in here to give you guys some looks at the early lines.
Welcome in, y'all. This is our look at the early lines that were released yesterday for Saturday's games. Well, we have a whole slate of games, actually, for the weekend's games of college football. I am Chris Moxley. You can find everything I do at Chris Moxley19 on Twitter. Let's hit you with some early lines, and I'll get out of your hair so you can keep listening to Matt. Here is where we're at. Since we've been doing the show, we are doing pretty well for the most part. Last week we went 2-1, and we had a 3-0 week before that. Our loss last week was Oregon -6, which, in my opinion, is just a bad beat since Washington State scored with 1 second left rushing. Not sure why they felt they needed to do that, but they did, and so we lost that one. But 2 wins ain't gonna be anything to knock. So let's see what we got today. I'm on FSU -3.5 versus Wake. And this is on FanDuel. Everywhere else, this number is currently 5 or 6. I expect it to keep going up. I think you're only going to get it probably early, which is why we do this show. Jordan Travis is legit. And I don't know if he's NFL legit, but he is certainly legit for Florida State. He came back, just torched Boston College after looking great to start the season. Their edge, Jared Verse, is back as well, who looked solid against Boston College. Defense has been good all year. Wake Forest might have the worst secondary in the Power 5 currently. I mean, they got lit up for 50 points by Clemson, who has a terrible passing offense. I'm pretty scared if I have Wake right now. I think Florida State could win this game by a good chunk of points, and I like getting the discount here. So I am on Florida State -3.5 against the Demon Deacons. Second play, I am going back to the well on Kansas this week. Depending on what number you got them at, 7 was where they closed. They were able to cover against Duke, despite Duke scoring at the end of the game. Not quite a bad beat since they still covered, but annoying for those who had it at a different number maybe. But I'm going back to the Jayhawks this week, and I'm on them 3.5 against Iowa State. They are dogs in this matchup, which doesn't really make sense to me to be dogs by 3.5 points. I think this should be under a field goal. But anyway, I don't think books are still respecting the Jayhawks enough. Jalen Daniels, their quarterback, is a freak, seriously productive player. I think they can score against anybody currently. They beat West Virginia. They beat Houston. They beat Duke, which not that impressive. But first two, that absolutely are. They are really good on a play-per-play basis on defense, despite ranking pretty low in most categories. Like EPA, they're outside of the top 80, which is concerning. But when you look a little bit closer, their 26 defensive success rate means that they, on a per play basis, are productive and doing a good job. It's these explosive plays that are getting them. That's good news, because Iowa State ranks 106th in explosiveness currently. They are not explosive offense. Hunter Deckers is not really pushing the ball downfield a whole lot. They're not breaking up big runs without Breece Hall this year. I mean, it's not really great offense currently. They're 88th in yards per play. So, I mean, the offense is fine, but it's certainly nothing to write home about. And I think that Kansas, if they can just keep their down-to-down consistency that we've seen, I think they can win this game. But I like it in the 3.5. The hook is in our favor. I like Kansas again. And if they win this game, they will be, I believe, 5-0. So rooting for the Jayhawks. Love the job Lance Leipold has done. This game should be under field goal against Iowa State. Final one, another new head coach. I'm on Washington -2.5. It's available a couple places. It's moved up to 3, generally speaking. Like on DraftKings, you can't get it at this. We can get it here at Caesars and FanDuel. So again, another nice little line, and avoiding the field goals is pretty nice here. UCLA's defense, I think, a lot worse than what their advanced metrics currently show. This is a team that's played Bowling Green and Colorado, limited those two offenses pretty good. But they let South Alabama score 31. Washington is a top 5 offense in the country. certainly top 10, top 5 passing offense. They're 11th in EPA per play currently, 20th in yards per play, despite not having a rushing game, but I don't think that's going to matter against UCLA. This game could easily go over, and I think that's certainly in play depending on what number you get it at. It's at 67 right now. That's just a big number. I might come back to it when I talk with y'all on Wednesday or Thursday. So we'll do a little bit more digging into that number. But yeah, the 2.5 I think is a really nice value here. I just don't think UCLA is going to be able to stop them. The Huskies have shown they can score against two quality-ish Power 5 opponents in Stanford and Michigan State. Michigan State has a bad passing defense, yeah, but they still posted like 39 points. I think UCLA is not a good defense currently. I think they have been elevated beyond where they should be. So I think they're getting a little too much credit in this matchup. They have a good offense. Washington State's defense leaves a lot to be desired as well. But give me the Huskies here, 2.5. Dave, they've been really solid. They've been just impressing almost every week. I think that Kalen DeBoer has kind of got this team rolling right now with Michael Penix under center, 3 really good wide receivers in Jalen McMillan, Rome Odunze, and Giles Jackson. I think you get this under a field goal and you're sitting pretty good. Again, it's only available on 2 books. Let's run through it real quick, and then I'll let you all out of here. Florida State minus 3.5 against Wake Forest. I think that this is a value based on what else is currently out there. Kansas plus 3.5. This is available on Caesars against Iowa State. I still don't think they're getting the credit they deserve. And Washington minus 2.5 is available on Caesars and FanDuel against UCLA. I think the Huskies are legit and they're going to keep rolling this week. So that's all I got for the early lines. Let's keep doing well. We've been productive this far, hopefully beating the movement for the most part. So let's kill it.
Thank you very much, Moxley. Doing a great job with the betting. You guys have winning money with him. Definitely not if you're listening to me, so don't do that. Listen to Chris. So really quick, before we get out of here, we're going to break down the 2 games that we did not get a chance to get to on college fantasy tonight with me and Nate Marquise. Let's start with USC Oregon State. As I mentioned, 17-14. So Caleb Williams goes 16-36 for 180 yards, just 1 touchdown, which does go to Jordan Addison. Travis Dye ends up having a pretty good day, 133 yards on the ground with 1 touchdown, as I mentioned, Jordan Addison, who gets you 42 through the air. Taj Washington's actually the leading receiver with 467. Mario Williams, not really a great day, just 1 for 22. I talked about on Better Sports Radio on Tailgate, you might want to sit Mario Williams, even though the past 2 weeks he had gotten over 70 yards and gotten a couple touchdowns. Caleb Williams just 17.7 points. Addison 13.2. Mario Williams 3.2. Not a great day. A couple of the Oregon State guys did. Chance Nolan. Man, it's so hard to start him in fantasy because sometimes he has like these great games, and then the other times he's just really bad. This game he was really bad. 17-29 for 167 yards, 0 touchdowns, 4 turnovers, 4 interceptions, including the game-sealing one. It sucks because I really felt like had he played just a little bit better, they probably end up beating USC and knocking off another team. Deshaun Fenwick gets into the touchdown, into the end zone with 29 yards on the ground. Addis Jam Griffin, who came out of nowhere, in my opinion, 84 yards and a touchdown on the ground. So overall, like the Beavs, honestly, I'm kind of a fan of Oregon State. I really want them to continue to succeed. They are 3-1. Still have a chance to play for the Pac-12 championship. Again, it's just the top 2 teams winning percentage-wise in conference. They've only have 1 conference loss right now against USC, but let's see what they continue to do moving forward. A team that I think has a real shot of winning and competing for the Pac-12 championship, Washington, who beats Stanford 40-22. Moxley just mentioned it, man. Like, Kalen DeBoer has got the Huskies going. Stanford side here, in my opinion, not much to talk about outside of the fact that because E.J. Smith was out, Casey Filkins gets some run here. Filkins has a good day, 100 yards on the ground on 20 carries. Now, he doesn't do anything. He does 29 yards on 2 receptions. E.J. Smith, we know, great receiver. Very curious to see what happens with E.J. Smith when he comes back. On to Washington's side, though. Michael Penix, again, over 300 passing yards, 22-37 for 309 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. You have got Wayne Papa, I believe is how you say his name. 13 carries for 120 yards and a touchdown. But really, it was again the wide receivers. Jalen McMillan, 5 for 59. Rome Odunze, 8 for 60, 161 and 1 in this one. Just a great, great game for this passing attack at Kalen DeBoer, Washington. For those of you who want to know, Michael Penix, 26.95 points in fantasy. Jalen McMillan, 11.1. Of course, Rome Odunze, big game after being injured for 2 weeks, 30.1. So, guys, that will do it for us this morning. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Tomorrow of Austin and Colin bringing you guys the waiver wire edition. I will catch you guys again back on Friday.